Hello everyone, you're watching a team deathmatch gameplay on the map Dawn, and today I'm bringing you a kind of casual rant commentary. It's going to be about the competitive scene, which is something that I'm particularly interested in talking about right now, since I believe Season 1 just finished and Season 2 was just announced for the competitive scene, with another prize pool of $1 million for Gears of War 4, which is kind of a big deal, and it's great to see the thriving competitive scene. And that's mostly going to be the tone of this commentary. It's going to be a positive rant. I'm really impressed with how everything has gone, and just to kind of structure the rest of the video, I'm going to start by kind of talking about some of the problems that the Gears competitive scene used to have, just to give a kind of greater appreciation for the competitive scene we currently have, which is what I'll talk about second, and then finally I'm going to talk about some changes that I personally would like to see in the competitive scene. So just starting with the older competitive Gears of War scene. If you used to watch Gears Ultimate Edition or even Gears 3 or 2, the go-to game type was always execution for the competitive scene, and that always made for interesting gameplay, of course, but the problem with execution is that it would have moments where it was just rational for both teams to not make a move, which would lead to really slow gameplay and in some events stalemates. And from a spectator point of view, that was always a problem because it's not very easy to keep people's attention when you're not seeing anything actually happen in the game. So that's what it really inspired, partly at least, Escalation to create this kind of heated objective game type where players would pretty much always be forced to be making moves to play for an objective. But my original point being that one of the struggles of the earlier Gears scene was having these game types that were conducive to spectating. Now, the second issue that a lot of the Gears tournaments, in my experience when I watched FaZe in the earlier time periods, is that there were huge organizational issues where if you were watching matches, once the match ended, you would be waiting so unbelievably long to watch the next match unfold. And I'm not sure what has to go on behind the scenes to keep things going fast and smoothly, but that wasn't something that Gears of War was particularly excellent at. And I just even remember a little story where Fallout was commentating, sorry, and he was basically the televisions had gone out, no fault of his own, but the televisions had gone out, so he was commentating, and it was almost just like an audio book, if you will. And he was going crazy, being like, I wish you guys could see what's happening. This is so intense and crazy. And I remember thinking, man, honestly, I wish you just didn't even say that, because as someone who is a spectator and not even able to spectate with visually, it was frustrating. So there's just a lot of moments like that where I remember not being super happy with kind of the quality of organization that went behind these competitive tournaments. But now to kind of talk about the current scene, it could not be any more different in my opinion from when I've watched. And I'll start with the game type. Escalation is obviously the go-to. It is the only game type I believe that is a part of these tournaments, and it is obviously a very unique and interesting game type, something that you have not seen in a different game, and it creates for a lot of heated moments and always fast pace, and it is objective. So that kind of solved the whole execution issue that we had with the competitive scene. And on the organizational front, from what I've watched, the tournaments that run have been super smooth, and they've done such a good job of making sure that when one match ends, they get to another match in a fairly reasonable amount of time, and in between those matches they are always very entertaining too, which is not something that they used to do. They'll play content now in the middle of matches, or you'll have your casters who are actually really entertaining, and I know there's a Blaze Live. I think he's my favorite one, and they do an excellent job and clearly understand the game and kind of foster this really great community. So just kind of continuing off from that, the other thing that I absolutely love about the Gears 4 competitive scene is that it has this kind of international focus where you're seeing all these different tournaments happen in different parts of the world, and to me it's really endearing, and it's a reminder of just how popular and loved this game is internationally, and not just in North America, which is obviously where I'm from and I'm sure a large part of my fan base, but also in Mexico, Paris, and a whole bunch of places that I'm sure I haven't mentioned that really just appreciate this game, and a huge incentive for those competitive players who like to travel. And I believe for the second season, they've also announced that some of the tournaments are going to have a much more regional focus, which is excellent if you want to get some heated kind of competitive gameplay going with people in your geographical area. So I couldn't be more impressed with all the things they're doing with Gears of War. They truly are turning it into an esport, and you know, the success is continuing. You have a season 2 with a very large prize pool, and it seems to be enough to keeping pro players wanting to play the game. So as I've said a million times, I'm very happy with where it's at, and I think it's something that's undervalued because the competitive scene is an excellent way to keep an engaged community and kind of grow the game, and it's super fun to watch. I'm ashamed to admit that I actually don't watch too much of the competitive scene. I'm addicted to Halo competitive, which is weird, but with Gears I can never... I definitely watch sometimes, but I don't watch all the tournaments religiously. I'm curious to know amongst you folks if you actually watch a good amount of competitive Gears, what you like about it, what you don't like about it, but I'll definitely be watching more in the future. And just with that comment, I kind of want to talk about quickly just some of the things I would like to see change in the competitive scene. Perhaps this is what will bring my interest back in, but right now it's escalation only, and I've always been a person who kind of likes to see a lot of different game types being played by teams because to me it's just really refreshing and it shows off the diversity of what teams are capable of. So I would, in my perfect world, I would love to see not only escalation but modes like Capture the Flag or King of the Hill. A bomb search and destroy game type would work great with Gears because I've always loved the single elimination game types that are offered by this game, but I understand the issue that creates from a perspective, spectator perspective. But if you add in an objective game element, then all of a sudden, you know, that single elimination game type can become a viable spectator sport. So really that's the only substantive critique I can provide about the Gears of War 4 competitive scene. Is just a multitude of game types to kind of show off what the teams are capable of. But other than that, I'm going to leave the rant alone. Thank you very much for listening, and please let me know what you think when it comes to the Gears of War 4 competitive scene, and I look forward to reading your comments.